So I want to say compliments of the season to all lifestyle champions who have joined us this evening. I'm so excited to see our faces, whether it's morning, afternoon, or night where you are. Thank you so much for joining in. We're having a very special edition today of our BYC. So in case you're joining us for the first time, this is Lifestyle Champions International Foundation. So this is a non-governmental organization where we raise a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about making healthy choices every day in order to reduce the risk of lifestyle-related diseases. And we've had a wonderful year. We've had interesting topics this year. For example, I remember that the very first webinar we had this year, we talked about the power of fasting, the health benefits that come with fasting and the different types of intermittent fasting. I'm sure some of us were there, and the video is still on our YouTube channel in case you want to revisit it. We've talked about spices in our meals. We've talked about important foods like seasonings, nuts, and all the things that we can do to make our food taste good without us introducing some chemicals or preservatives that can be harmful. But today we have someone special. I've had a number of encounters with her, and she's going to be sharing her story. I actually want to read a short bio about her, but the first time I met her was during a collaborative event that we had. So Lifestyle Champions actually had a collaboration with Eti Farms and also Truly Hospitable. Truly Hospitable was here earlier this year to also speak to us. And so we had that collaboration. We called it a mushroom party. And it was such a lovely time that we had together in person, eating and talking about the healthy contents, of the food that we were eating. So one of the reasons why we are talking about this topic that we have called it tips to enjoying healthy, tasty, plant-based meals. There's a reason for this. Actually, that caption, plant-based meals, is what I really want us to take note of. One of the things that we actually promote in order to prevent lifestyle-related diseases, and we actually have a lot of evidence, that speaks to the fact that when we take plant-based meals, then we are less likely to develop those conditions that we always mention: hypertension, type 2 diabetes, obesity, coronary heart disease. The top killers all over the world can actually be found among all these diseases that I've mentioned. So, but I happened to be at a conference. It was actually the American College of Lifestyle Medicine conference. That was in October. And I listened to one of the main speakers. He's a National Geographic fellow. I'm sure some of us watch the National Geographic, on TV. So he's a research fellow. So he's a demographer. So he goes to different parts of the world, looking for signals. And one of the things that he really does is to look for signals of areas that have the highest concentration of the longest lived individuals. And one of the things that he noted, which is not news really, but he noted that the places he went to, he discovered that the people that live the longest, it was either that they ate meat like 5 times in a month. They were not meat eaters, people that, ate meat every day. They ate meat maybe an average, of 5 days in a month. And then some didn't eat meat at all, like the Seventh-day Adventists. And he even showed us the fridges. He took pictures of the fridges of those individuals. In fact, 100-year-old woman, when you opened her fridge was full of, all sorts of fruits, veggies, plant-based things. So anyway, when we're talking about plant-based food, we're talking about something that grows from the ground. And when we're talking about minimally processed, it means that it's going from the ground and almost straight into your kitchen without going through so much of, processing. So plant-based meals just refer to the fact that you are taking more of plants, things that grow from the ground, rather than animal food. And you know where the animal food comes from. I don't need to mention it to you. So animal food, we have our cows, we have goats, we have sheep. Some people eat dog meat, so anything that comes from an animal, bush meat, all those things are animal-based foods. But from studies, we realize that people who stick more with plant-based foods, they are less likely to develop those chronic diseases. They are more likely to live longer. They are more likely to have a good quality of life, even at that age of 100 or 110 or 80, they are more likely to have a better quality of life. So, and that's what we are here to do, to encourage ourselves to choose life, so that we can enjoy our old age and we won't become handicapped and have people waiting on us hand and foot and all of that. So let me stop here. That's just an introduction. So the person who is here with us tonight, her name is Mrs. Eti Imbuk, and she's the MD, that's Managing Director and the CEO of Eti Farms Global. She's very passionate about what she does. I don't want to give you all the things. She's going to talk to us. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, actually. But she's done amazing things, when it comes to plant-based meals. And she's going to be sharing her story with us. And maybe at some point I will share my screen, to show you some of the things that I have benefited in the course of my interaction with her, which are actually very tasty and healthy. So I want to welcome you, Eti Farms. I always call her Eti Farms, Eti Farms, So in case you can't remember her name, just say Eti. So I'm going to welcome you right away. Please, let's welcome her with some affection, some claps. Just show some claps in the chat box for her to welcome her. This is her first time with us at Lifestyle Champions, during our webinar, and we're so glad that you accepted our invitation. And I hope that your husband is right beside you, because I know he's support of what you do.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invite, Dr. Moyo. It's always a pleasure. Please let me know you can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you so much.
So we welcome you to just tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and then the questions will come later. So over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Good morning, afternoon, evening from wherever you are. My name is Eti Imbuk. And just like Dr. Moyo said, I know a lot of people just know me as Eti Farms. So and I can't bear a grudge. So I'm the founder of Eti Farms Global, where we call ourselves a one-stop shop for everything mushrooms. So from cultivation to processing to teaching people how to get it right with mushrooms to just showing the world of possibilities that exist with mushrooms beyond the stereotype that mushrooms can only feature in your soup or in your egusi soup, or the stereotype that mushroom is a poor man's meat, or the very recent stereotype that mushrooms is a rich man food, or is for those who do not have problem in life, they just want to live a soft life. There are just, I've heard so many things about mushrooms, but we're just here to, as much as possible, push the right narratives about mushroom and just to help people really enjoy other than enduring mushrooms. So yeah. From a personal perspective, I'm from Akwa Ibom State, and my journey with mushrooms began way back. My first encounter with mushrooms was like a lot of people where your grandma makes the most amazing mushroom meals. You know, that soup that your grandma does whereby, there's just like 2 or 3 sticks of okra inside. And when you're picking the mushroom, it's water is dripping and you're licking, and it just tastes so amazing. You love it, those were like the highlights of my holidays with grandma. And this was just always once in a while because, of course, mushrooms sprout in the rainy season. But sorry, I'm going to take the topic back to plant-based. I'm just trying to give like a background to why we do what we do. And then life continued up until I had my first asthma attack when I was 7. And coming from a family where everything was more about herbs, if you're sick in the morning, my father has made one concoction for you, and before you know it, you feel better. So it was difficult having to keep up with the regular, conventional treatments. So one way or the other, mushrooms were recommended if we could get it on a regular basis in my meal. And one thing we knew was, okay, well, at least mushroom grows on decaying wood, but how do we get it to grow all the time? So we fell our mango tree at the back, and then over a period of a year, 2 years, oyster mushrooms, the normal mushrooms we know, began to grow. And then continually having it in my meals over a period of over 7 years plus, I just realized that I couldn't remember the last time I had an attack. And then from that period, I just had to pay close attention to really know and check out when I would have the next attack. And it just never came, right? Because of this, the family went plant-based, right? Just in a bit to support me, just to give me that support. So these mushrooms, to a very large extent, became part of our routine food. So that has been the journey for me, and why doing what I do is very personal and dear to my heart, because I realized that beyond whatever I pass through, there are people who are looking for mushrooms, but are either scared of having to risk their health because they don't know if the mushrooms they've seen is edible or the poisonous type, right? Or they just have to wait till the rainy season or when they go to the village to enjoy mushrooms. And then, just like doctor said, where people are now getting more aware, people are now getting more intentional about their diets and all. A lot of people have been asked to incorporate mushrooms into their meal, but do not even know where to get a trusted source for mushrooms. So all of this really made me believe that if there's superfood, if mushrooms hold so much potential, we don't have to shift it to the background or just wait to relish it once in a while in the rainy season or when you travel to the village. So pretty much that's the background for me. So moving to the topic of today, plant-based nutrition, right? A lot of times, once I say, oh, I'm on a plant-based diet, the first thing is, how do you survive during festive periods? And we're right here in, December. How do you survive? I'm there. How do you survive? Like, there's just always tons and tons and tons of questions, which I hope that before we finish today, right, there would be those answers to those who already have that curiosity going on behind the scenes. So how do you enjoy plant-based meal and still don't miss out on anything? I always say this, whatever meal you enjoy with meat and fish can be enjoyed on a plant-based level. Whatever meal you think of. Is it our local soups? Is it intercontinental dishes? whatever meal you can think of. Is it comfort food? So you just, first of all, you just have to make it, you know, you have to make that decision that you want to do this. So that is where it starts from. Whenever I sometimes I go on trainings and everybody's eating, they're all tearing their chicken and for 3 days, for 4 days, they're like, Madam, are you Mommy Gio? I was like, what? How, why? Are you on a 3 days dry fasting? I said, why? I said, because you've not been eating. I said, well, because what is being served here is not my food. So like, how do you cope? Sitting in amidst people who are just literally devouring all sorts of animal protein and you're not even moved. I'm like, it just starts from the mind. If no matter how glamorous anything is, if your mind shifts or moves away from it, if you feel that this thing is not food to me, it really does help to draw that fine line for you. Just as if you've been able to fight and conquer soda, whatever it is, if you're saying, oh, I don't take sausage, I don't do processed, at that point your mindset has shifted from the point that, oh, this thing is delicious, I'm missing out, to a point where you are like, no, my body is precious and this is not food for me. It is not food for me. It is not food for me. So no matter how much the recipe looks good, as long as that thing is inside, you just feel it's not healthy. So if you're able to walk yourself to that point where you just feel that I'm not suffering, I'm doing this for myself, for my health, for my future, it really just helps you get yourself into that space where you really enjoy the state of being and the kind of meals you make. That's where it begins. Secondly, you just need to learn to make meals that taste as good as when you would have all these things. And first of all, I'm glad I heard Doctor talk about spice. It's a session that was made about spices. So if a link can also come up again for those who didn't take part in that session to really go back and watch, right? I think spices makes a whole lot of difference. Spices makes a whole lot of difference, right? Once you're able to get your spices right, it really just makes the difference for you. At Eti Farms, we just launched a variant of plant-based spice that allows you to cook without having any form of animal derivatives or preservatives or MSG in them, right? The basics is always have these natural spices. You have your ginger, you have your garlic, you have your onion, you have carrots, you have rosemary. You can have them in wet and dried form, right? You can have them in wet and dried form. Onion is a very powerful tool, right? Once you make onion powder, it just gives you something else different from what you're used to as the wet onions. It elevates your meal. If you have carrot powder at home, you have ginger powder, you have garlic powder, you have, I don't know, onion powder. You have all these powders, you have rosemary powder at home, and you have them also in wet form, frozen. You would be surprised what this can do for you in your meals. You will be surprised. Carrots does a whole lot, and then lime, right? Lime. And then one thing I also learned from Chef D was to use fruits as a way of boosting flavors in meals. And right now, I'm a lover of using pineapples, right? So you're making your curry sauce, you're making fried rice, any meal that should have that sweet, savory nature to it. You blend up your pineapple real good and use that what's it called? The smoothie you've blended from that pineapple, blend it up very well, and you use that in your sauce or in your fried rice, in your jollof rice. It makes a world of difference. But of course, learn to balance, because it's sweet. It doesn't have to be overly sweet. You can also work with lime or vinegar just to balance it out so it's not overly sweet. Having these spices really helps to, help you enjoy the flavor of your meals. You can have them down. It really does make a whole lot of difference. Now, aside spices, there just has to be that effort. It has to be that effort. And then because the things you're working with, for instance, mushrooms or even tofu. So tofu is like, it's gotten from soya bean. These things do not have like flavor on their own. So when working with them, you really need to take your time. You need to take your time. You don't need to rush, right? So for your mushrooms, for instance, once you soak it, you can marinate your mushrooms overnight, right? You can put in all your seasoning in water, make them soluble, pour in your mushrooms and put it in the fridge. Let it sit in that seasoning liquid overnight. By the time it is morning, it properly soaks up all of that seasoning and it tastes amazing, right? It tastes really good. Same thing with your tofu. You can just let it sit with the seasoning for some time. If it's 30 minutes, even if it's 15 minutes, just let it sit and really soak up all of that seasoning so that when you make food with it, it comes out really amazing. One of the things I always tell people is always have your protein. So I'm going to classify the different kinds of protein that you can use to boost up your plant-based meals, right? But generally, always have these things ready to go. So for instance, you know the way you can either fry your meat or steam it up and have it in your fridge so that when you're making a meal, it just makes it faster. You can heat it up and add to the meal. You can do the same for your plant-based chewable protein, right? You can do the same, whether it's tofu, whether it's mushrooms, you can have them already prepped up. One easy way to prep your mushrooms or tofu is, okay, so let me start with mushrooms. Once you soak it up, if it's dried, you soak it in warm water, bring it out, let it sit in seasoning for maybe 15 minutes, and then you cook it. Cook it for 10 minutes. Once you cook it for 10 minutes, you can cut it into whatever size that works for you. You put it in the fridge or your freezer, so that whatever meal you want to make, that mushroom now can go into your pasta, it can go into your stew, it can go into anything, your soup. That just makes it very handy and easy for you to work with the mushrooms. If you want to take it a step further, like I do most of the times, I have my stew. I always have my stew. So once I finish making the mushrooms, I just put it in the stew and let it cook with the stew, right? Let it cook with the stew for 5-10 minutes. So it really just absorbs the sweet juice from the stew, and then I set aside. That way you can even snack on it. You can even you can go further to air fry it. You can air fry it. You can just play around with it and have it in the fridge so that whatever you are making, you simply heat it and add to maybe your rice. You heat the mushrooms up and add to your rice. Your soup, you can, when you serve the soup, you add the mushroom as a side dish. That way it just helps it maintain that flavor. Same thing with your tofu. Once you prep it up, the way you have peppered snail, peppered whatever, peppered meat, you can do same for your mushroom or your tofu and have it in the fridge. That makes it easy for you to, just put it and complement it with any meal and you're good to go. So there are different types of protein. So I've mentioned the ones that, as Africans, we are used to really having that huge chunk of distraction on our meals. I know a friend who cannot eat no matter how hungry she is if there is no distraction, obstruction in the plate, right? So because we are used to this, you just have to also make your plate look that way. You have to make your plate look like what you're already used to, so you don't feel like you're suffering, right? So what's it called? Your mushrooms, your tofu, that it can serve that purpose for you. Then other proteins you can also add to help boost your protein profile. We have avocado. Avocado, it's made of good fat. It also has protein in it. There are nuts, so many types of nuts, right? If you want to also boost your food, if you want to make creamy pasta, you can do that with cashew nuts, right? You blend it up and then you use that to prepare your creamy pasta. Try this. It comes out super, super amazing. Try that. Blend up cashew nuts. Use it in making your spaghetti. Use it in making whatever it is. It is absolutely enjoyable, right? So nuts, avocado, they are very healthy forms of protein you can, add into your meal. And then we have our more, even though they said beans is more of carbohydrates than, than protein, but it still just helps to, just spice up your meal when you're on a plant-based diet, just so it doesn't look, completely bland. Then there's cowpea, right? There's cowpea. There are different types of beans. There's black pea. We have the red beans. There's black beans, and then there is chickpea. Rather, that's what I was trying to remember. There's chickpea that you can use to. You can also use it as in making pottage, just as you would use beans. It also has a very impressive protein profile. So these are the different things you can use to build your protein when you're on a plant-based diet. Okay, so I've talked about how you can make these things readily available, so you can on the go just make these things very seamlessly, right? Next thing now is, how do you spice up your food just so you don't feel like you're missing anything? Like I said, people would ask, how do I survive, Wambe, or how do I survive during Christmas and, things like that. I always say there is no recipe. There is no recipe you want to make with meat that cannot be replicated with plant protein. And it's the fact, right? I gave Dr. Moyo mushroom shawarma, and maybe she will tell us about her experience with it. And that is also always one of the things I said to people who I was like, oh my God, how do you do this? How do you do this, right? Just to show that you could actually enjoy anything. You can enjoy anything without the fear of missing out anything. Okay, so yeah, that's the mushroom shawarma. You can enjoy without missing out anything. What are you hoping to achieve, right? Are you hoping to get that feel? For instance, this is Christmas. You want to get something that looks like, okay, so this was the mushroom pepper soup we had during our mushroom party, mushroom meals hangout. What is that recipe you're looking to get? Are you looking to get that crispy deep fried chicken kind of feeling on your plate this Christmas? Definitely you can achieve that. Yes, you can achieve that. Yeah, so this was the mushroom kebabs we made. So just so you really are not missing out on anything. I still would leave her to talk about her experience and how this felt, how her experience eating this, what it was for her, right? But for me, for instance, if I'm looking at getting that crispy, nice feeling when maybe during festivity, I have guests, I just want to do some shakara with my plant-based version of everything to show to them, right? So what I simply do is, once I've prepped up my mushrooms, after that, I fry the mushrooms, like I fry the mushrooms and really take out all of that water. And then I make a batter. I make a batter with flour, right? And then I dip these mushrooms in it. I fry it out. It just gives you that shredded, crispy feeling that you get when you are working with crispy chicken wings, right? If I want it extra crispy, I simply still put it in breadcrumbs and then I air fry. It just gives you that really amazing feel to your mushrooms. I've done this severally, and anybody who visits me during festive period is always like, how possible is this? How possible is this? You can achieve that, right? And then if you want to get that suya kind of feeling with mushrooms, it is also achievable. Once you soak your mushrooms, you cook it for 10 minutes, you dip it in suya pepper, right? You dip it in suya pepper and then you grill. Once you do that, the result you get. So the idea is that nobody's saying it is 100%, it 100% feels like the original thing. But the idea is it helps you, it allows you relieve those, those moments without feeling left out, right? You're not feeling left out, whatever it is. The same way you have meatballs, you have the beef placed in between your burger. You can do all of this with mushrooms or with tofu. For mushrooms, you can grill it out, season it properly, and then you grill. Once you grill, you can use that for your meatballs. You can use that for your stuffing to make yourself either a sandwich or what is it called, or a burger. So whatever it is, whatever you are craving, whatever comfort food, you just feel like, for me, I think shawarma was one of the things I missed a whole lot, right? And that pushed me to be able to create something for myself with mushrooms. And the result has been amazing. And it keeps getting better. When my mother-in-law came during Omugo and was like, hey, you can just hold on, let me make pepper soup for you first. When I make catfish pepper soup for you, after the childbirth treatment, we can go back and continue. I told her mother-in-law, wait, let me teach you how to make mushroom pepper soup. And after I made that, she was blown away. She couldn't believe that it was possible. But we did that. It tasted amazing. In fact, till today, she always just says, oh, please, so send me mushrooms. So I'm craving mushroom pepper soup. I said, since when? Right? So all of these things, you can actually recreate all of these things with mushrooms. And the beautiful thing about mushrooms is the fact that, that different types of mushrooms, and they all have different textures. So this allows you can prepare a recipe with different types of mushrooms and get the feeling as if there is shake, as if there is momo, as if there is all of the mushrooms, as if there is beef, because they all have different unique textures. And then depending on how you prepare them, it just comes out amazing. So there is really nothing beyond having to make that decision that you want to do this for yourself. That is the most difficult part. And once you're able to, accept with yourself that you want to do this, I feel the others are just what you take a day at a time. And then I think for different people, it's just different. And for you, it could just be baby steps. It could be baby steps. It could be having one day where all your meals are made with plant-based options, right? There is no meat, so there's something called meatless Mondays, where some people just skip Mondays, where all the meals they have on Mondays are without any form of animal protein. And once you've gotten to that level where you're comfortable, you can actually enjoy a meal without, having to feel that it is incomplete. I always say, yes, it is good to just have a very beautiful plate where you see something heaping that gives you that, that urge to want to continue eating. But it should actually go beyond that. We should train ourselves to that point where you feel that the meal should be wholesome, such that even if you're taking a puree, even if it's a puree where you're not seeing any meat or fish on top. But for the fact that you know that there is a protein element in the food, that should, and then there is this, there is that, it's a balanced diet, right? The vegetables, the fiber and everything, that you're okay. We should be able to train ourselves to that point where even if you carry a plate that has protein, that has fiber, that has everything, and put it in a blender. This is just an example. Put it in a blender, blend it all up. You should get to that point where you know, okay, yes, I'm not seeing the meat, I'm not seeing the fish, but I'm okay because it's healthy. Why I say this, because sometimes you could just make when you're on a plant-based diet, you could have a plate that does not necessarily have all these things, but you know that you have either included them in powdered form. So that consciousness that this plate is wholesome should be more of an importance to what the plate looks like, right? But I'm not saying you should put it all and blend it all up, right? I'm just saying that once you're able to get to that point where you're not bothered, that is the best you can do for yourself. And that is when you know you can really go on a plant-based diet. Right. Okay, so another thing too that can help beyond setting out a day to maybe have meals that is just plant-based. You can even have one meal of the day, right? You can choose one meal of the day to just make it 100% plant-based. And little baby steps, before you know, you're comfortable with it and you can extend it. And then for some people, it would just have to be, this is what I want to do, and you just take out everything and just say, okay, this is where I want to start. I think that works for some people. Other people would do baby steps. And then some people do 1 week in, 1 week out. I always just say there is no one size fits all. It could just be baby steps, whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable about. I have someone who says, I really would love to do plant-based, but I can't let go of prawn. I say, okay, if you can actually take out everything and leave prawn in your meal. She said, I can actually do that. I said, start with that. Start where you're comfortable. Start where what can work for you. Start with what can work for you. And then slowly, you would find something that would help, satisfy the prawn craving. And from there, it would just be it for you. I've had people who say chicken, in fact, they can poison them with chicken. Kill me, let me die with that chicken, But you can just make these baby steps, and before you know it. And then there's someone that just says, oh, I can take out everything but this one. I said, that's fine. That is fine. Just if you can take out everything and have chicken, before you know it, you can have it twice in a week. Before you know, you can have it 3 times in a week, and then it just keeps going. And who knows? Who knows? So it's just about you taking the decision. And then another thing too is there's always the part where, what do I do when I go out? What do I do when there are actually some chefs who are beginning to cater to plant-based meals, right? So you can look out for that. There are even those chefs that cater to general meals, but can actually curate something for you. So if it means, we started something called Mushrooms Eat, where all the meals beyond our mushroom meals hang out. So Mushrooms Eat is like not your regular conventional eat-in place, but where you can have mushroom or plant-based meals made in liters and delivered to you. So you could start with something like that. Stock up your fridge with nicely made plant-based meals. That could also make it easy for you. And then you can go into actually learn how to make these things really taste amazing, how to get nice plant-based options for different things. I mean, if we could make, last year we were at Ofada Festival, and we made Ofada rice. We sold Ofada rice and Ofada sauce made with mushrooms. That was in the heart of where people were cooking all the orishi-rishi, all the orishi-rishi. We made ofada sauce with mushrooms and we sold out, right? We sold out. Like, people could not believe that that was actually made from mushrooms. So it's just about the intentionality. What is that recipe you love so much and you want to recreate in a plant-based way? You can try that, and it actually works. It works. So I don't know. I think I've said so much. So I don't know if there are questions, any specific questions anyone wants more clarification on, or anything, just so we can. Okay, so let me show it. So this is tremella mushrooms. This mushrooms mix shake. Once you make it and make it right, it doesn't love too much water, right? Once you make it right, it gives you that towel. I don't know what is called. That cow towel kind of feeling in your soup, right? It is just amazing. Then this is shiitake mushrooms. This is shiitake mushrooms. It gives you that beefy flavor to your meal. I use this like crayfish. Once I blend it up, because it has that intense flavor like crayfish, it adds to your dishes, right? So something else I didn't mention was mushroom powder. So people would say, how do you cook soup? If you don't use crayfish, how mushroom powders, even a soya bean, like tofu powder, you can blend up your tofu and add to your cooking, and it really holds the soup together. But shiitake mushrooms most especially gives you that umami thick flavor that you would expect from adding crayfish to your meal. And then there is the regular oyster mushrooms. This is also it also has that umami flavor it adds to your meal. So there are so many things you can really just experiment. When people say, "Oh, how do I do this?" I'd say, whatever the bottom line is, however you treat your meat, you can do same for mushrooms. You can do same for tofu, and it would give you, even if it's not 100% result, it would give you at least 80% result in whatever recipes you are creating. So yeah, thank you. Let me, Dr. Boye, over to you.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sure that we've been following with rapt attention. This is Mrs. Imbuk. I hope I pronounced that very well. I'm used to calling her Eti Farms.
Right.
Yes. So she is the MD CEO of Eti Farms Global. And for those of us who joined in the middle of the discussion, she started by talking about her testimony or testimonial, how she became passionate about eating mushrooms and growing them for a living. That's all she does, to grow mushrooms and make them available. And from what she's told me, they've not even been able to fill the gaps, or fill the demand, for those mushrooms. And the reason why we're talking about mushrooms is because they are plants, they're plant-based, and they can help you to switch from some of those unhealthy things that we really love. I know there are some people who love bacon, they love sausage, aside from the red meat, that people even cook. But you find out that if you go for an English breakfast, before you know it, you have 3 sausages on your plate. Before you know it, you're going to buy suya, and we think that we are having fun. But the fact is that those meals have been shown, to actually damage our cells. So we need to move away from the animals. Like somebody was still telling us yesterday, please leave the animals alone. Or eat mostly plants, leave the animals alone. So we really need to weigh in on that. And what Eti Farms has done for us tonight is to show us how we can actually enjoy it. Because when some people hear the word mushroom, they're like, oh, aren't mushrooms poisonous? How do you even get them? People have a lot of misconceptions about it. But I remember when I went for that mushroom party hangout, I had such a beautiful time, tasting the different meals. We had egusi, that had mushroom inside, and you wouldn't know it was egusi soup. It had all the orishirishi. We had pepper soup, which I showed. That was a photo I showed from that event. Of course, we had the kebabs. I'm someone I've been off meat for a number of years now, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. I can't remember anymore. But if I try to taste meat, I can't even swallow it anymore because my taste buds have kind of shifted. So I'm not even struggling. I'm not even missing meat anymore. So the thing is, how do you replace with the protein, the iron, how do you have a healthy alternative to be sure that you are, plant-based? I know some of us put in chicken and fish as replacements. Of course, we're not saying don't take chicken, don't take fish, but what we're just trying to present are the studies that we have found, and how they actually improve our quality of life and reduce our risk of diseases and help us to live longer. At the end of the day, we are dependent on God Almighty. So it's not by might, it's not by power, but He has given some of these insights to us, so that once we are able to take advantage of them, then it helps us because we have a free will. And I remember that National Geographic fellow, who talked about the blue zones of the world where people live the longest. He made a comment. He said, "I don't read the Bible that much, but it's right there in Scripture in the book of Genesis. When God said, 'I'm giving you all the herbs of the fields. I'm giving you every tree that produces fruits, plants that grow from the ground.' Seeds. He was quoting it from the Bible. But it was after the fall that God actually gave us permission to say, okay, you can take. I think that was after Noah came out of the ark, and He gave permission for us to eat, animals. But that was not how it was in the beginning. And of course, you can see that the age of man began to go down gradually, from the 960, 900 and something, 800 and something, 700. And eventually, well, God did give that word and say, the life of a man now would be 120 years. But even that 120 years, how many people are living up to that age? So what we have in studies, in research, is that people who are plant-based, and now we're not talking about being vegetarian, we're not talking about being vegan, we're just saying predominantly plant-based, things that grow from the ground and less of animal food. So she has told us how we can ensure that those things remain tasty by using our spices, marinating them. She has given us different ideas of how we can enjoy these meals. And I'm going to share this video on our YouTube so that you can go back and listen. And in case you want anything, special, you want, some consultation with her to get more about how to maximize your kitchen, I'm sure she will make herself available. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. I don't know if we have any questions. Let me look in the chat box. Oh, right. So we have some questions here. Thank you so much for this informative talk. Could you tell us a bit more about the nutritional value of mushrooms compared with lean meat, for example, the protein content and other nutrient content? So I believe when this person is talking about lean meat, they're referring to goat meat, because or maybe pork. I believe that's what that person is referring to, the protein content. Okay. We have well done. Thank you so much. Can one get it directly from you, Ma? Yes, definitely you can get it directly from Eti Farms. That's what she does. She grows it, so you can actually make orders and get. Are there any downsides to eating mushrooms, or they all positive? Okay, so those questions are for you. What's the difference in the cooking method between king oyster mushrooms and oyster in terms of how to spice sweet versus savory? Okay, so let me leave that for you, Eti Farms. I'm sure you can answer those questions.
Yes. So about the question, if there are downsides or they're all positive with mushrooms. Well, yeah, there are some downsides. So let me start with the fact that some people are actually allergic to mushrooms. So beyond if mushroom is poisonous or it's edible, if a tiny percentage of people are actually allergic to mushrooms. And well, I know if that 1% is you, right? I wonder if that if you fall under that 1%, right? But they're just that 1% of people. I mean there are different things where there are different things people are allergic to, right? You have nuts, you have some people are even allergic to fish, and different things. So there is a certain group of people that are allergic to mushrooms. Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so yeah, so there is that, right? There is that, and then basically mushroom is food, right? Mushroom is food. It is food. Except you're allergic to mushrooms, there is actually no other downsides to eating mushrooms. So let me just talk more a little bit about the health benefits of mushrooms, right? So mushroom is a food that has no cholesterol. So beyond the fact that it doesn't have cholesterol, it reduces unhealthy cholesterol in the body. Mushroom is also a food with low glycemic index. So this means that mushrooms reduces, it doesn't spike up your blood sugar when you eat. So this makes it good for everybody, most especially for diabetic people, because they need more of foods that do not in any way contribute or add up to their blood sugar. Beyond this, mushroom has antioxidants. It helps to boost the immune system. Mushroom is the only plant or food base of mushroom gives vitamin D. Beyond the sun, mushroom, you can get vitamin D from incorporating mushrooms regularly in your meals. Yes, mushroom is a plant protein source. It is very high in dietary fiber. It is high in dietary fiber. That makes it very good for digestion, any issues around bowel movements. Mushrooms aid in seamless digestion of meals. Because it is high in potassium as well, it also helps with anything respiratory and heart health. It's very good for your heart health. Continuous consumption of mushrooms makes it easy for your heart to stay healthy and carry out its functions seamlessly. So there's just a whole lot of health benefits attached to mushrooms that makes it all round healthy for you, except for those who unfortunately are allergic to mushrooms. So I don't know what the other question was because my network has been a bit shaky.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So some other questions came up. The first question actually had to do with the protein content as compared to lean meat. So of course, I think sometimes people compare lean meat with white meat. We have red meat, we have white meat, we have lean meat, we have I don't know what the other one is. But just to say that typically, most of the meat would definitely contain a larger amount of protein, than mushroom. It depends on the amount that you're eating at any point in time. But I don't know whether you want to comment on that. That was the question.
Yes.
The comparison of protein content.
Okay, so for fresh mushroom, so first off, mushroom is made up of 90% water, some even 92% water. So the dry matter in mushroom is actually very small. So for mushrooms in fresh state, 100 grams of fresh mushrooms has only 2 grams of protein. That is why, as a person, I work more with dried mushrooms because the nutrients are actually very condensed, kind of. It's condensed and it actually is a more, it has much more to offer because the water has been taken out of it. But 100 grams of dried mushrooms has close to 30 grams of protein in it. 100 grams of dried mushrooms. That's why, as a person, I work more with dried mushrooms, right? And on this comparison about what it offers in terms of the protein, what's it called? The protein profile. Another thing to look at is what are those other complementary health benefits or nutrients it offers, right? But for dried mushrooms, it contains close to 28 to 30 grams of protein, while the fresh mushrooms, 100 grams, contain 2 grams of protein.
All right, thank you for that. Let me just quickly ask the other questions that are here.
Okay.
So even though I checked the dietary allowance, the recommended amounts of protein that is needed in a day, for protein, and for someone who is weighing about 60 kg, you would need about 48 grams of protein in a day. So one can actually plan it, just for people to know that you don't have to rely on animals to get all your protein. If you are able to plan it very well, you can get or you can get it from plants. Remember that legumes,
of course,
soya,
exactly,
beans, all those other types of you mentioned, they are also sources of protein. Nuts, seeds, they are also parts of types of protein, but people usually relegate them kind of. So we have another question here that says, please, I want to understand from your earlier statement, does eating mushrooms cure asthma? Maybe you answer that first.
Okay,
then the second question,
yes.
Someone is still talking about lean meat. Yes, someone is still talking about lean meat being skinless chicken, turkey. And then someone says, please, how can I get tofu and mushroom to buy? How do you identify poisonous mushrooms? Okay, over.
Okay, so yeah, so that was the case for me. Having mushrooms, beyond mushrooms, I was on a plant-based diet. So having mushrooms incorporated into my meals alongside being on a plant-based diet helped me. Now, beyond me, I also know someone who going on a plant-based diet helped him like recover from asthma completely 100%. This was someone who used 3 inhalers within a week, sometimes more. So, and going on a plant-based diet completely helped him. And then during the Solon conference, I think the guy from, was it Zimbabwe, also mentioned the experiment they carried on some people who were asthmatic, placing them on a plant-based diet. Dr. Moyo, if I'm correct, and that also they didn't have any incidents of asthmatic attacks. So yes, it's related to helping solve or reduce attacks with asthma. For me, it helped me completely without having any issues. Then, yes, you can get mushrooms from us. You can check us out on Instagram. We have different things that would inspire you on how to incorporate mushrooms into your meal on our Instagram handle, Eti Farms Global _backup. Eti Farms Global. So I'll just put that on the chat so you can follow us, and then Eti Farms Global _backup. Okay, so that's our Instagram handle. you can send us a message and we'll be more than happy to attend to you. And yeah. Then for poisonous mushrooms, I always just say you don't need to bother your head. First things first, I always say it is important to eat mushrooms, but staying safe is the most important. So picking mushrooms randomly, I don't encourage people to get mushrooms from a trusted source, because there are also those mushrooms that are like poisonous lookalikes of even the mushrooms that are edible. What happens when mushroom is cultivated is that you use seeds to propagate them. So that way it enables you're 150% sure that they're edible. But when you're picking mushrooms from the wild or from your farm or from a bush or from a tree in your compound, there's still that element of how sure am I it is edible. And we don't want you ending up in the hospital because you want to incorporate mushrooms into your meal. That is far from what we want for you. So it's just best to stick to buying from a trusted source.
Yeah, that's totally in order. And I'm sure that people will be able to get, I was able to buy some mushrooms also from her. And I've already told my girls that this Christmas we're going to make mushroom shawarma.
So how was the?
We've not made it yet, but we plan to. Oh, but the shawarma, yes, the one I took at the conference, the one you gave me, it was so tasty. It was so lovely, because I don't like sausages. I have not taken sausages in years. I don't like seeing them cut up anywhere. So the fact that you could replace, that wrap, and put in, tasty mushroom, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And I would love other people to have the experience. The same thing with the kebab as well. And I got that same feedback from people at the conference that the kebab was lovely, despite the fact that it wasn't red meat. And just to say that, because I can see that some people are having difficulty, when it comes to lean meat and all of that. So the emphasis really is not on whether the meat is lean or not. You understand? The emphasis is on animal meat, because what I've discovered is that any type of meat, once you remove a particular part of the fat from it, or a particular part of it, they'll call it lean. It can be lamb, it can be poultry, it can be pork. There are different types of meat. They will just call it lean meat. So, but we don't usually use that expression, when we're making recommendations. What we just say is animal-based, plant-based. And then there's this question here that says, what are the adverse effects of animal-based diets? I think when we started the discussion, I actually spoke a bit about this, and I talked about some of the studies that have been done, the areas of concentration of people that live longer and healthier without chronic disease. They have been found to eat more of plant-based meals. That even the people who were taking meat at all, they could take meat maybe just 4 or 5 times in a month. And that's not the case with us in Africa. We feel that you must see meat on top of your plate. That's the obstruction that you want to see on top of your plate at every meal. Some people will go for a party and they will tell them at the party, please, I don't want any rice. I don't want any swallow. Just give me meat. And the plate is full of meat. And, they take Maltina with it and they feel that, well, I didn't eat so much. But those are the things that go in and clog your blood vessels, because they contain a high level of saturated fat. You can go and check WHO website for what they say about red meats, being a carcinogen as well. So it increases the risk of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. We're not trying to scare anyone, and we want us to enjoy our meals. So we're just trying to tell us about the alternative so that you don't shift, because there's some people, their health, challenges and all. So this is just for us to understand that we can enjoy an alternative form of protein, which is from a plant, if we know how to source for it and if we know how to prepare it to make sure it tastes, the way we want. So I hope that answers the question about reducing animal protein. Is there any other question? I think I believe all the questions have been answered. Okay, there is, did you answer the question about the difference in the cooking method between king oyster mushrooms and oyster mushrooms?
Okay, no, I haven't. So actually, they work the same way. They work the same way. So it's the thing about mushroom is, what do you have in mind? What do you have in mind to achieve? That speaks to the cooking method you use, right? If, for instance, I want to mimic, maybe I'm trying to do something like I want to have that suya vibes, you could go grilling. If you want to achieve like shredded chicken kind of vibe, you can saute, you can stir fry. If you want to get that meaty feeling in your soup, you just steam it with your seasoning, your seasoning, and then you use it directly in your cooking. So it's actually about what you want to achieve, right? But beyond that, for the king oyster and the oyster, what I see with those two different mushrooms are that the king oyster is sweet, it has a sweet flavor, oyster is savory. So that makes me use more of king oyster in rice dishes and sauces. And then oyster more for pottage, for soup, for savory meals. But beyond that, in the technique for cooking, it just is about the recipe. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? And that actually speaks more than, what exactly do you what cooking pattern do you want to use? It's about what you want to achieve.
Right. So we're about to round off now. So we'll just take this last comment. So Dr. Amide says, Dr. Ore, the all meat meal you just described is a keto diet, high protein, high fat, low carbs. What is your take on this? So about the keto diet, we don't recommend it. Yes, we know that it can make people to lose weight, because what it helps the body to do is to shift, the consumption of calories, from it shifts the calories that will be burnt up will be coming from fat, and then the body will now start using ketones at the end of the day. So people lose weight, but just imagine you having to eat a lot of meat, egg, a lot of fatty things, and hardly any carbohydrates. I encountered a patient who did keto. She weighed about 120 kg or more before she started the keto, and then she lost weight. In fact, she lost that weight. She lost maybe about 20 or 30 kg. But do you know that once she stopped the keto diet, she gained all the weight back and more? And she told me that, Dr. Makinde, I couldn't cope. I couldn't, it was too expensive, because if you are really doing the real keto that they're talking about, how can you afford, eating all of those kind of foods, at every meal, taking a lot of beef, pork, a lot of cheese, butter, cream. You're just taking that at every meal and you're hardly taking carbohydrates. So I don't know whether you want to make any comments on this, but I think we need to round up, and I can see everyone saying beautiful. Thank you for this talk. Are these mushrooms readily available? Please, I think you need to type in maybe a phone number as well. I don't know, maybe a phone number as well as your website again, so that people can contact you. People need to know how they can get the mushrooms. And then definitely we're going to send the recording out. So do you have any last comments, before we go? Any final comments, Eti Farms? Okay. Is she still here? Eti Farms, are you there? Oh, okay. I can't see her here. Oh, okay. She was logged out. She's joining again. That must be the network fluctuating. So while she's joining, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone. This is our last meeting for the year. And, it's been on my mind that we need to have this event, and talk about our meal, so that as we get into the Christmas season, we don't lose touch with some of the things that are very important. And I want to recognize Dr. Abel Adegoke, who is here, my mentor, senior friend, and also the chairman for the Lifestyle Champions International Board of Trustees. Thank you, sir, for being here. It's really good to have you.
Dr. Ray, it's Mrs. Adegoke. How are you?
Great to see you, ma.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Have
any words for us?
Yes, I think as Mrs. The speaker was speaking, I could relate to what she's saying, that you can get creative in the kitchen with any type of ingredients. And I think one of the biggest deal we have now in Nigeria or across Africa is the small chops. So the frying of the small chops, everything you describe about the keto diet, it's so much deeper. However, people are consuming all of those things that they're trying to shift away from the traditional common diet. The small chops, a lot of people are consuming highly processed food in the small chops. Even they might say they're eating other things. So let's just be mindful of that. And the more we can vary our plants in the plant-based diet or mixed diet, the better. Average of 30 to 32 different plants in a week, and that includes your spices. Don't let us lose sight of the different plants that we must include, not just one color, not just one type of plant, every plant across the board. Because your normal peas, your green peas, your broccoli, they have higher protein as well. So let's just balance things up. Thank you for the organizing and the guest speaker. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you so much, ma.
Thank you.
Great to have your voice. And I know that you do fantastic things in the kitchen too. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to coming over again very soon.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice to see you.
Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It's been an amazing time and a great way to end the year. I saw one of my ogas just now, Dr. Blessing Chukwukelu. I think she's left now. I can see Dr. Victoria Aladewolu. Thank you, ma, for being here.
Aladewolu, good evening, Dr. Glory.
Yes, ma.
Well done.
Thank you, ma.
Good job you are doing.
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. And then I can see my dad. My dad is here. Daddy
Wow. Wow.
And I'm sure mom is right beside him. Thanks for coming, Dad. Many other people on the call tonight. I really appreciate you. Thank you for making time to be here. So a big thank you to Eti Farms.
Dr. Well done. Oh.
God bless you. Yes,
God bless
ma.
you. We have
Yes.
enjoyed your program.
Okay. That's
you
my
have
mom.
enlightened us more.
You can import the mushroom to Oshogbo.
We now know more about mushrooms.
So I hope you can import some to Oshogbo.
So once we're able to get the good ones, we will key into it. We will include it in our diet too. Well done.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, mommy and daddy. Thank you, everyone. Let's put on our videos to wish each other Merry Christmas in advance. You can put on your video. Oh, that's my amazing sister, my amazing twin sister. Can you see her? As usual, always hosting. And the prof too, Professor Kolade. I can see Dr. Dozier. Dr. Dozier is our education secretary at Solong, Society of Lifestyle Medicine of Nigeria. I can see David. David, it's great to see you. It's been ages. Thank you for being here. I can see Sister Moju Bola. Thank you, ma. She's the provost of the nursing school at LA Ibadan. Thank you, ma, for joining us.
Thank you very much. That's quite insightful. We're all key into it. Dada, Mom, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. I can see, okay, Dr. Ramide is here. Mrs. Iwuchuku, Mrs. Olabisi, Mrs. Oluwole, Mr. Omotosho, Dr. Ikauru Jebin. My big auntie, Dr. Jemima Amy. Yeah, welcome, ma. Thank you for being here, ma. Then Dr. Mimi. Dr. Mimi, we're together in so long. She's outgoing general secretary in so long. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Olushola Oluwaseun, thank you for joining. Mr. Semil Anifowoshe, thank you, sir, for joining. Mrs. Quadri, thank you for joining. Esther Onyoziri, thank you, ma, for joining. Teresa Oki, thank you, ma, for joining. I can see iPhone. I'm not sure who that is, but thank you for joining. Mrs. Olatunji Folashade, is that doctor? Or I'm not sure. Thank you, Mrs. Olatunji, thank you for joining. Faith, thank you. Sister Dupe, thank you for coming. Aramide, I can see you. Matron Adebulugbe, thank you, ma, for joining us. Good to see you. Mrs. Otusemade, thank you. I hope I've recognized everyone. We appreciate you all. And thank you once again to Eti Farms. So we're going to make sure that this goes around everyone and we can get our contact, make orders, and try out the tasty meals. I've been trying to click on the chat box, but I can't read anything. Somehow I can't click on it. Or can you help me to check the messages that are there? I can see like 8 messages there. I don't know what the messages are.
I think everyone is just saying Merry Christmas, and Happy Christmas. So those are the messages there.
Okay. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
God bless.
Hey, Hore, how are you?
Auntie Renke, I'll call you. I'll call you.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Love you.
So good night, everyone.
Mommy, Daddy.
Have a restorative sleep.
Hello.
Mom and Dad, good night.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.